Hi, I'm Shannon Rollins from Shannon Rollins Real Estate, and today I want to talk about the 4 most common contingencies you will see in a contract. Whether you are buying or selling, there are some common contingencies you'll likely see in a contract, so let's talk about a few of these. First of all, a contingency is something that has to occur in order for the contract to continue, and if this doesn't take place, then the contract could end. So the first most common contingency is contingency on a buyer having to sell a home in order to buy. This may mean that their house is not even on the market yet, and so they are writing an offer, usually with a specific time frame of 30 or 60 days to say, if you will give me 30 or 60 days to get my house under contract, I want to buy your house at this contracted price. A lot of times sellers, however, don't want to take their house off the market for a 30 or 60 day time frame while the buyer is working to get their house under contract. So a good compromise is that you make it contingent upon the sale of your home, but with a 24 or 48 hour kick-out clause. This means that you've got time to get your house on the market, try to get it under contract, and if the seller gets another offer they would like to accept that doesn't have contingencies, they would come back to you and say, hey, we've got another offer we would like to accept. Are you able to remove your contingency? Did you get a contract on your house this weekend by chance? And move towards closing. Now, some buyers can remove the contingency. You have to remember that if you write an offer on a home, it could be 30 or 60 days before it's supposed to close, and your first monthly payment's not going to be due for another maybe 45 days. So you've got plenty of time to get your house under contract if you price the home right for the location and condition of the home. The second contingency you want to be on the lookout for is an appraisal contingency. An appraisal contingency is there to protect the buyer to be sure that the home is valued at least a minimum price. Note I said it has to be valued at least a minimum price. It doesn't mean that the appraisal has to appraise for the contract price. It could say, you know, I'm a buyer, I love this house, I'm getting a conventional loan, or I'm a cash buyer, and if the home is worth at least X, I'm willing to pay this price, which means that I've got the money to bring the difference between the appraised price and the contract price. Now, some buyers can't do that, but many times buyers do have some extra cash that if they really want that home, they're willing to do that. So keep that in mind as a possible option. The third contingency is on home inspection. We always suggest that you get a licensed inspector for that particular state to get a home inspection done. I bought and sold many houses myself, and I always hire a home inspector so I know exactly what I'm getting into. Even if you have bought and sold many, you really do need to get an inspection because you want to know everything that's going on with this house, and it's so easy to miss one little thing that could be so expensive down the road that you didn't anticipate. And if you get a home inspection done, you may have the ability to negotiate with the seller on getting some repairs made, or maybe a repair allowance, or even negotiate on price a little bit to offset the repairs that you're going to handle yourself later down the road. It's important to know, though, that the home inspection is different from appraisal. Many times VA buyers think that the VA is sending out an inspector, and so they don't need to hire an independent licensed inspector, but that's wrong. The VA sends out a home inspector that's inspecting the property for value, and if they happen to note that there are some safety issues, like a handrail is missing or something like that, they may make a note of that on the appraisal, and that will have to be addressed prior to closing. But be clear, they are not fully inspecting the property, so you still need to hire a licensed inspector. The fourth contingency is on financing. In the contract, there'll be a time frame that's written in that you have to get financing approved by. And if you miss that deadline, you could lose your earnest deposit if you don't get approved. So be sure to watch that time frame. As a seller, you probably want to be looking for a buyer that's going to provide you a pre-approval letter versus a pre-qualification letter. Pre-approval letter means that the lender has actually looked at the financing documents for the buyer. They've really taken a deep dive to look at this buyer to see that they probably are going to be pre-approved, no problem. They just have to get through any contingencies in the contract. Versus a pre-qualification letter means that they maybe have talked to them and the buyer has told them some things, and based off of what the buyer has told them, without them verifying, they're pre-qualified. So this is a common error that is made. If a buyer gets pre-qualified but they don't happen to mention all the details to the lender, for instance, they forget to mention that they have to pay child support, well, that can impact their ability to buy because it impacts their debt to income ratio. So as a seller, look for a pre-approval letter. As a buyer, get pre-approved. There's no point in having heartbreak and not getting the house you want and it falling apart after you spent money for inspections and appraisals. So get pre-approved. If you are thinking about buying or selling, give me a call. My team and I are on standby 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., ready to help you take the smoother road to sold.